The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Kiwi.
Time now for Dylan's stories. Astronomy staring into the night sky with thanks to the Auckland Stardome Observatory. G'day there, Dylan.
G'day, Wammo. Yes, nice intro there. Bit of re-enchant.
Yeah. He's certainly a chap who likes to stay up late at night. I know.
Yes.
Looking into the night sky, wondering what's it all about. Why are we here?
Yeah, don't we all?
There are some great programs, by the way, at the moment on TVNZ7. They're doing a bit of a science and technology month, and there's some great astronomy stuff going on there.
Now, I've heard about these, and it kind of makes me wish I had a TV.
Yeah,
but not enough to actually get a TV.
No, that's true. Well, today, we're talking about the constellation Scorpius. Do tell us about
That's right. Okay. Well, Scorpius is in the best position for viewing at the moment, and it's pretty much the starting point for viewing constellations in the winter season.
Okay.
Most of the modern constellations were made up by the ancient Greeks about 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And they had pretty good imaginations, those Greeks. So
sometimes I think you need a bit of imagination. It's like staring into clouds.
Oh yes.
What do you see?
Yeah. It's like connect all these dots and make the pattern of, say, for example, Sagittarius, a half man, half horse shooting out an arrow.
Yeah, because often people will point this out to me and I just go, oh yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see that.
With the exception of Scorpius.
Yes.
Which actually looks like a scorpion, looks like the thing it's named after. So it's in best viewing position at the moment simply because it's directly overhead after sunset and it's very high in the sky, so it's basically right up. And it's got kind of three stars which make the head, and then you can see some claws off the head, which are technically part of the constellation Libra, but we can borrow them for Scorpius.
Yeah.
Then you've got the body, and you've got a trail of bright stars which curves up into the tail and then round into the sting.
Okay, and whereabouts in the night sky? Where would we need to look?
So pretty much directly overhead.
Okay.
After dark, say at about 9 o'clock, and maybe slightly north of directly overhead. And it's actually easier to see from in a city where you've got light pollution. It's going to block out all the dimmer stars, so it's actually easier to pick out than in a pristine sky. And because it's only the stars that make up the Scorpion that can be seen. So it's a really bold pattern that jumps out at you. I
noticed last night the moon was almost directly overhead quite early in the evening.
Yes, that's right. So the moon, I think it's still in Scorpius actually. So the moon moves every night, obviously, and
it's quite nearby, isn't it?
Nearby the Earth?
No, nearby. Yes, Dylan. No, nearby Scorpius.
Yeah, it might be just away from the tail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably in Sagittarius. I know it was in Scorpius a couple of nights ago. And so that's a good way of locating it too.
And I noticed the Milky Way is also sort of around the end. I guess you'd call it the end of the Milky Way is right near the tail.
Yes. And that brings me on to another interesting story because, of course, the official astronomical constellations were made up by the ancient Greeks. But, of course, each different culture around the world has their own versions of these patterns they see in the stars.
Yep.
And in the Pacific here we don't have scorpions, so it's obviously not going to be called a scorpion. But it is such a distinct pattern of stars that it was recognised as a discrete unit, and it was called Te Mato o Maui, or Maui's fishhook.
Huh.
So you can also see on the pictures there how it makes up the shape of a fishhook.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I see that.
And the Milky Way is also called Te Ikaroa, which is the long fish.
Yeah.
So it's said to be a big fish stretching across the sky, and then the fishhook is sticking into the side of the fish at pretty much the thickest part. So it's also a pretty good representation of Maui's hook catching the giant fish.
Oh, isn't that lovely the way every part of the world has their own interpretation of it, but a very good interpretation, really.
Yeah, well, for that particular group of stars, because it is such a distinctive shape, whereas, usually Pacific constellations will be stars that don't form a discrete pattern of another constellation.
Mm. Now, the fact that it's called Scorpius, generally, does that have any relation to the zodiac signs?
Yes, it's the same thing, yep. I'm not sure why astrologers call it Scorpio, but its astronomical name is Scorpius. And yes, it's one of the constellations of the zodiac. One of the 13, actually, constellations of the zodiac, not 12.
Have you ever been able to see all of them in the sky?
Well, the arrangement of them is such that you would never see all of them because they are the constellations which are on the background of the plane of the solar system.
Right.
So if you imagine the solar system as a flat disk, like a tabletop.
Yeah.
As everything orbits the sun, it's not spherical. It is on a two-dimensional plane. Then the constellations that are in the background of that plane, they're the zodiac. So they're the ones that the things appear to move through. So that the sun, moon, and planets will move through the different zodiac constellations as the Earth orbits the sun, if that makes sense.
I think that does make sense. So that does make them harder to stand out?
No, it makes the one that's one of them will always be blocked out by the sun at any time.
Okay.
So you'd never see all of them. You'd see maybe 10 or 11 at best.
Mm.
But during the course of the night, you can see most of them.
And what does it mean when they say going through the age of Aquarius? Is Aquarius coming into view, or what's that?
No, Aquarius is visible basically any time except for February, when the sun is blocking it out. No, I'm not 100% sure what they mean by the age of Aquarius. Astrology is not something I pay a lot of attention to.
Well, the two disciplines are pretty much part off, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They kind of went their separate ways about 500 years ago.
Yeah.
It might have something to do with precession, but I'm not sure. Precession is the fact that, I was saying how the constellations were made up by the ancient Greeks about 3,000 years ago. So that's when the sun was in each zodiac constellation at a certain time, but the Earth's orbit is not. It's not the Earth's axis tilt. It sort of wobbles as it goes around the sun, and that's a very slow wobble. It changes points every about 2,500 years.
Right. Okay.
So in the time since the ancient Greeks, the Earth's axis has moved through a whole constellation. So it's basically a whole constellation out of phase, out of whack. So when your horoscopes say you are an Aquarius or whatever, the sun's not actually in Aquarius. It's in the constellation before. So when I'm, by traditional astrology, an Aquarius, but on my birthday, the sun was definitely still in Capricorn, as with most Aquarians.
Well, I think you've almost qualified to be an astrologer as well this morning.
Yeah, well, yep, okay. If anyone wants their fortune told, just give me an email.
Nice one, Dylan. Thanks so much. What's going on at the Stardome this week? Do we know?
Yes, there's the Sky Tonight show at 8 o'clock, which is talking about the constellations and stars and planets you can see in the sky. So it'll also go over the planetary conjunction, which is still kind of in effect. It'll also feature the constellation Scorpius being in prime position, and sort of show you how to pick that out. If the weather's good, which it hardly ever seems to be, then you go outside and look through telescopes and see the actual night sky, and you will see Scorpius there.
Cool.
And a few other constellations, Libra, Sagittarius, that sort of thing.
Great, thanks, Dylan.
And there's a show on at 7 o'clock, which is on black holes.
Black holes. Ooh.
Yeah. So
it's hosted by Stephen Hawking's?
No. Unfortunately, it's narrated by Liam Neeson.
Oh, all right. Oh, that'd be a nice voice anyway.
Yeah. That is a nice voice, and it's quite a good show. It sort of goes into the sort of instills the mystery of black holes.
Excellent.
Well.
Great, thanks, Dylan. We'll talk again next week.
Yes.
Nice one. That's Dylan Storey's